welcome to White Nights Day 2. I'm so happy to see so many bright, energetic faces after a relatively long night. So can I get a quick show of hands of who's in the audience right now? Programmers? Okay. Project managers? Some of you will be raising your hands multiple times. BD? Marketing and PR. You raised your hand. You're everything. Okay, cool. Me too. Okay, so I'm Matt, and I work with the Wargaming Special Projects Group. We're sort of the early tech adoption, sort of guerrilla marketing arm that is usually the first in the organization to do sort of concrete projects based off of new technologies. For the sake of this presentation, I think it'll be, let's just say that it's augmented reality for now. We do a lot of different media, but that's sort of what I'll be focusing on in the relatively short amount of time that I have here. We do them sort of quickly, agilely, short-form projects partnered with heritage organizations, museums, tech partners for the sake of R&D, PR, branding, partnership opportunities, and amazing post-barbecue gas station moments just like this. So, we're Wargaming. I'm sure most people know more or less who we are. The short story is online, free-to-play, best-in-class, armored warfare games, World of Tanks, World of Warships, warplanes, focusing on mostly early to mid-20th century armored warfare. We have 16 offices, correct?
More than 20?
More than 20?
Yes.
Okay, in the last hour we've opened 4 new offices, so congratulations to us. We have an office in Prague and Brno also, relatively new, and we're hiring. So you can talk to my colleague here, Karuska, if you are interested in learning more about that. So I think we're positioned kind of like interestingly in the space from a community standpoint. I think we have a pretty special audience. It's quite a large one, global, kind of across cultures, unified by gamers that are interested in history and historical enthusiasts that have come to the game initially because of that historical backbone, but also staying because of obvious reasons that they're sort of amazing games. We know, as sort of like any community manager knows, that it behooves us to expand our universe beyond just our games. We can't expect all of our players to be playing all the time, so we attempt to create more and more context and extended storytelling that's based off of that historical backbone, and there's a lot of leeway for that because it's just the subject matter of early war and armor is just, we can do so much with it, and we do. And so we have this wonderful, passionate, deeply connected audience that understands digital technology, obviously, they're gamers, and what we try to do is create these sort of extended experiences that have our brand and our content organically integrated into the experiences, not putting our logo on something, but literally using our expertise, background, and assets to create extended experiences, storytelling experiences. So we create loads of videos, additional content, stories about the tanks that our players are engaged with and immersed with in our space all the time. We feel like it helps us develop a deeper relationship, keeps people in our universe, creates positive branding association, and in many cases actually results in, when you do a Google search for a lot of these subject matters, topics particularly about tanks, for instance, something to do with content from Wargaming is probably going to be somewhere at the top there, whether one of these videos, or Tankopedia, or article entry, or partnership, or something like that. We partner with a lot of museums. We partner with Kubinka in Russia, Tank Museum in Bovington, RAF, Munster, all sorts of museum and heritage organizations. And we feel like we mutually benefit with an overlapped audience, lots of co-events, branding, sponsorship, and we kind of bring something that museums sometimes lack right now, which is sort of historically is like being able to engage sort of a younger audience and keep them captivated and interested in learning about history. So it turns out that our audience really cares about that stuff, whether they realize that they're learning about it or not, they are. And so that's sort of my group kind of taking those things together. It's the pillars of like large, passionate global audience, the technical expertise, the game design chops, the historical background, internal historical research, and partnerships. And we create sort of these iterative, quick cycle storytelling projects, historical storytelling projects, historically using stuff like VR, more recently augmented reality, to create press and branding opportunities, to engage media that don't typically write regularly about what a game company does on the day-to-day basis. These are outlets like the BBC and VentureBeat and Engadget and historical press and mainstream and technical press that usually they would be writing about us if we spend a lot of money on something, right? It's like an acquisition or a new game launch or things that we do regularly anyway because that's what we do. But for us, my group is able to, utilizing this sort of combination of facets and the tech platforms, able to tell these sort of novel, very visual storytelling meta stories like case studies that we find to be quite engaging for press. We do it for our community also, perfect audience for it. They fully understand how to operate inside of these spaces. It requires very little explanation. And they love it. It's very high engagement, sentiment, etc. We do it for the sort of like early partnership opportunities with like companies like Google and Microsoft, sort of their like advanced R&D arms that are working on stuff like HoloLens and Tango/AR Core, AR Kit, stuff like that, in relatively quiet spaces where we're all as an industry trying to determine for each one of us what is the appropriate level of effort to be investing into new technologies that maybe don't have completely proven addressable market sizes right now. Everybody has a different answer to this, but for us, we get in early because we do it quickly, agilely, and sort of in a guerrilla fashion. They're not AAA games yet. I mean, we just announced World of Tanks VR, so that's coming very soon. But that's sort of like the end point of like a multi-stage process that starts with stuff like this. So we've done a lot of projects over the last few years, and I'll probably skip over basically everything except this project that we did with the Tank Museum the middle of last year. That's a pretty good representative project, I would say, and has branched off into a lot of other sort of sub-projects that continue to this day. And there's an announcement coming soon that's based off of this that I can't talk about yet, but it's very exciting. It's coming in the middle of March. If anybody can guess what happens in the game industry in the middle of March, you can maybe make some connections there. This is Tank Fest. It happens every year at the Tank Museum in the UK, one of the biggest, maybe the biggest tank museum in the world. Big partner of ours. It does. I mean, it's self-explanatory. It's just a massive tank fest. It's tanks everywhere. Thousands of people come to Southern England to ride tanks, look at tanks, appreciate them, talk about them, meet the curators, meet some of our like internal sort of celebrities. And this particular year, last year, they ran into an issue where they were opening a new collection of the Tiger tanks, the historical German Tiger tanks. They were planning an exhibition of 6 tanks. They were missing one. They couldn't bring it in from Munster for various reasons. And so we saw an opportunity in our regular communications with them that seemed to tick all the boxes of why we do these early stage projects. And so you can see there, right, it was missing. You see the tape showing no tank, just tape. So we saw that and we thought, we should probably fix that. And so we did, just to skip past all of the R&D and development process. We built out an experience where we brought the legacy Sturmtiger model, which is a tank that you can't play in World of Tanks anymore for various reasons, including the fact that it's just a gigantic rocket launcher. We brought that legacy model in up to poly counts and up to resolution on textures and stuff like that. And we had it come out of the wall from the Prokhorovka map, if anyone's familiar with WAP-PC, to come into the space right next to the other 5 Tiger tanks, so that it became the completion of the installation, the completion of the collection using an augmented reality installation. So it was the perfect like moment in time for like using sort of rare but still practical technology that actually works, using HoloLens and Tango, which is now AR Core, We chose Tango because we chose HoloLens because it's just everybody's interested in it. It's functional. It has limitations, field of view limitations, but the rendering's decent. The room understanding's pretty fantastic. Who's tried HoloLens here? Right. So because of that, you know, that scarcity of access to the technology, that's sort of a perfect reason why even amongst a group of like relatively technical game developers and programmers, like still a number of people haven't tried it yet. And so that's sort of the perfect sweet spot for us. And so at the event itself, you know, we ran a few thousand people through it, and it was the perfect sort of representative audience of like the kind of people that we like to talk to. It was historical and it was gamer. It was like younger, it was older. We have like even like the British tank commanders were there trying it out and were like legitimately impressed with it, right? So huge amount of types of demographic, large event, lots of press. That was sort of a big part of it also, and the ability to create like a really interesting case study. So sort of like introducing people and associating our brand and our ethos with the advent of a new medium, which doesn't happen all the time, right? It's rare. And this, whether you agree with me or not, AR at some point, when it becomes miniaturized enough and becomes et cetera enough, it will be a game changer for everybody. What was impressive for us is that it works, right? Like, a lot of this stuff is hocus pocus. A lot of the case studies you see are basically like CG, you know, reenactments of ideas of what could be, like what augmented reality, the promise of it, that's sort of like in the distant future. But in this case, it was important for us to show that this stuff is real, like it actually works. These are videos showing the actual devices doing the actual rendering and placement, and showing video from the HoloLens and all that stuff. It's like, if we can sort of sit on that little top left area where it's like, still novel, but practical, that's sort of the right spot for us. Like our first partnership with Google a couple of years ago as a group was with doing like virtual tank rides with VR video and Google Cardboard. And at the time that was like kind of a big deal, right? That was like everybody was talking about cardboard and what a strange device, but it works, and maybe it doesn't work, and maybe it'll just sit in my closet. But like it was where it is now. It was more like sort of where the top left sweet spot is for us. So that's changing all the time, and that's something that we're trying to follow and sort of be at the top of that wave, right? Sort of at the right moment, while also being able to practically accomplish something that's organically tied into our product, using our assets, using our stories, integrating our community, the full package. So it's this sort of perfect combination that leads to that kind of engagement and storytelling that we're looking for. This is what allows us to talk more frequently with outlets like Gizmodo and IGN and Kotaku and VentureBeat, because they're multifaceted projects that can be seen from different angles. If you're looking at it from the historical standpoint, well, it's an innovative way of doing historical interpretation. If you're looking at it from a technical standpoint, it's like, wow, I wouldn't have thought about putting a life-size tank in a museum using this technology, right? Think about it, typically associated with just gaming. And for us, we want to expand that definition and expand that universe beyond that. I think we've had some good success with it. We took, as a result of sort of the impact that was slightly surprising for us at TankFest, we took that concept and then we applied it to like 10 more events. We took it to Tokyo Game Show, Gamescom, CE Kiev, a number of different events, and did similar sort of activations, all with sort of the same universal kind of mind-cracking reaction from almost everybody that we put it through. And so that's some of the results from the press and influencers that we work with and stuff like that. We partnered with Rostelecom slightly after that, the big telco in Russia, for a more direct branding partnership that actually involved a tangible premium vehicle from our game that is on offer as part of one of their data plans. We partnered with them to make the T-44 experience. It was a bit more elaborate. There was an actual battle scene between like a Tiger I and a Stuka comes and dive bombs. I'm happy to show it to anyone that wants to try it afterwards. But similarly there, we put like, I think the count was like 7,000 or 8,000 people went through the experience. We sent those HoloLenses back to Microsoft in a very poor, very used state. It's a little gross. But it was a great testament to like how engaging these experiences can be. so even without even planning, we had Sergei Kiriyenko came by, the president of Rostelecom, Russia 24, First Channel, a number of these news outlets just kind of came, I think mostly without us even planning it. I think they just came by. In fact, there's coverage that we know about that we were never able to see because they just showed up. So we extended that to an ARKit port of the experience and released it in CIS only for now. There's more coming. Again, I can't talk about it, but there's sort of a big partnership announcement coming soon. And we showed that at WG Fest in Moscow. Was anybody there for that? Woohoo! The sort of iPad and HoloLens version of it shown at WG Fest. And I'll sort of let that run because it's a similar experience, but now the idea is to put it in the hands of as many people as possible. So some of the sort of like takeaways from a design and development standpoint is like, first of all, these case studies are super important. Whether you're a marketer or not, like even for internal evangelization, like you have to have these conversations about why we're using these technologies with these maybe minimal addressable markets, all sorts of limitations. People see the limitations first. So as an internal evangelist, these case studies are really important. So don't shirk that. Try and document what the meta story, because the nature of these technologies is that not everybody can access them. So you want to be able to tell those stories to the widest audience possible. The other part of it is like understand the context of what you're designing for as like site specific. Is it meant to apply to like adaptable environments sort of anywhere? How am I doing on time, by the way? Good? Okay. Be aware of your context. When we designed the Tank Museum thing, we knew that the Sturm Tiger, which is the same chassis and tracks as the Tiger 1, we knew that they were going to be next to each other. And so putting them next to each other at the right scale made it so that the Sturm Tiger model looked like a real tank for some people. If you look at some of the screenshots that we've shown to people, people actually not quite realize that that's an augmented reality tank. So use the environment around you to anchor the virtual object into place and make it feel more real and engaging. And then when it starts feeling really engaging and it starts doing crazy stuff that a normal object couldn't do, part of your brain realizes that it's not there in actuality. And the other part of your perceptual apparatus that still somehow thinks that it's there, something changes. It's sort of like a bit of magic. Don't forget selfies. Everybody wants to take selfies. Like, we had people wanting to just put the HoloLens on with the battery dead, like, just to have the picture of themselves with the selfie, you know, so it's like, in some cases we wonder whether we even need to do any projects at all, whether we just like carry a HoloLens around and just say like, put this on and say it was amazing. I feel like some companies do that actually. But remember that, integrate social features and sharing wherever possible, it's really important. Immersive audio is really important, more than you might think. It really enhances the immersiveness and realism. Be aware of the like literacy level or the experience level of your audience. Like, choose the right level of interactivity. Like for us, we found that we had to cut back interactivity, particularly on HoloLens, because from a UX standpoint, it's just, there's not a lot of common language for how to deal with these things, particularly in a short amount of time. So, you know, ease people into it. Know that a lot of the basic stuff that we think is very basic, even for other developers who haven't experienced it before, can be quite engaging. From a simplicity standpoint, like, don't invent problems to solve. You know, like, just because AR is there, just because the headset is there, don't like, just build something because it's there. Find a legitimate, something that you can actually contribute toward substantively, and do it that way. You know, find a legitimate solution, something that pushes the argument forward. And then finally, just be aware of the impact that we're having on people. Like, we're all game developers here. We've all been in this industry for a while, and we understand the sort of perceptual impacts that we have over people, considering how much time they spend engaged, not only just with our games, but with the external media that we create. And this is going to start changing things from an immersion standpoint more and more and more. So I would just say, you know, think about that, and let's use this technology for positive ends. So with that, I will just leave this running on loop without any explanation, and we can talk, do a QA, and thank you everybody for being here and listening to this presentation.
Thank you, Matt.